Mr. Mayor, distinguished council, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you tonight. My name is Lori Kroll. I believe your agenda says Lisa, but it's Lori. I am a senior community resource specialist with Draper-Aden Associates. Have been with the firm for about 20 years. Much of my time doing things just like this, to speak with our elected officials and citizens about wonderful opportunities that come your way. And tonight I'm here to speak with you about your participation in a regional EPA Brownfields grant that is led by the Allegheny Highlands Economic Development Corporation. This grant, before I get into that, I'd better tell you a little bit about Draper-Aden or I might get fired. I have actually done these presentations where folks in the audience thought I was from EPA. I'm not from EPA. We, Draper-Aden Associates, are the consultants for this grant. We helped to write the grant, and we've been involved with the EDC for since its inception. Draper-Aden, as many of you may know, is a regional mid-Atlantic engineering and environmental services firm. We have 7 offices across Virginia and North Carolina with about 330 employees. We're coming up on our 46 years of experience. We'll be soon celebrating our 50th year, and we are delighted to be involved in this program, in this project, in this region. We have deep roots here, and we appreciate the opportunity to work with you. We are a multi-service engineering and environmental services firm. I'm not going to go through all of the services that we provide, but environmental services is among our top services that we perform. We have over 50 environmental professionals in our firm that work with this program and have worked with this program for over 25 years, so we have lots of experience with these types of projects. So about the Brownfields grant, of which you are a member, AHEDC was awarded this grant in October of 2018 on behalf of Allegheny County, the city of Covington, and the towns of Clifton Forge and Iron Gate. All 4 members are considered a Brownfields coalition. This grant includes $600,000 total. It's a 3-year grant cycle, and there is no match required. That's one of the best things about it. You didn't have to put up any money to get this grant, and you're able to participate in the full funds. So the question often comes up, what exactly is a brownfield? By definition, EPA's definition, it's real estate. It's property with possibilities, either for expansion, redevelopment, reuse, or some sort of rejuvenation can be seen in one of these buildings. Typically, people think of these as old industrial sites. They do not have to be. Sometimes just a small gas station is considered a brownfield, and we'll talk more about that shortly. But another part of that definition is it's real property with possibilities, but it also has some presence, potential presence, or perceived presence of some sort of hazardous materials, pollutants, contaminants, or petroleum projects that cloud the possibilities for that property. The idea is many times you'll see a vacant property, and I know there are many in Covington, or not necessarily even vacant properties. Sometimes they can be underutilized properties. Maybe there's a better use for a particular property, but because there's a history or a stigma associated with that property, if maybe there's something wrong with it, nobody wants to invest in it. So this project, this program is intended to take away that stigma and help people see those possibilities in these projects. The money for this EPA grant, their basic tasks involve grant administration, community outreach. Tonight's effort is a community outreach event because we are this is a public meeting. We do an inventory and site prioritization, environmental assessments, redevelopment and remediation planning can be done with this. Not actual remediation of these properties, but planning for that, and that can be a significant task in itself. The grant administration involves all the reporting involved. EPA has a database called ACRES, which is site-specific, and all of the sites that we've done under your grant are entered in this database, and it's sort of an open public forum, and a lot of developers actually look at this database when they're looking for specific types of properties to redevelop. So it's a wonderful opportunity to showcase properties that we've done in your community. Community engagement can involve meetings like this, where we're doing just sort of an educational offering, but we also do a more focused community planning as community engagement. One thing we plan to do with the town of Iron Gate is sort of a visioning opportunity there in Iron Gate, because they haven't had much of that in the past, so we're going to be working with them on something like that. The inventory is basically an identification of all potential brownfield sites, or as many as we can identify. We use multiple databases that are behind this inventory that tell past petroleum spills, past hazardous contamination spills, and history of the properties going back 100 years or so. As far as the environmental assessments, we do all sorts of environmental assessments. Phase 1 environmental site assessments, or ESAs, Phase 2, and I'll differentiate between the two of those shortly. We can do asbestos and lead-based paint assessments. We can do structural evaluations of older buildings if you want to know if the structural integrity is there to help identify future reuse for a property. Geophysical studies, habitat species studies, historic resources study, you name it. We can do virtually anything, any types of environmental assessments with this funding. The idea here being that if you can make a case to EPA that this property could be redeveloped, but for the need to have this study done, they will typically be aboard with you. It's a very flexible program. They're not difficult to deal with. Phase 1 environmental site assessments involve desktop reviews primarily, the historic uses of properties to determine if there are any recognized environmental conditions associated with that site. This involves a site visit, a review of the property, a review of historic records, and so forth. And Phase 1 ESAs are minimum due diligence for mortgage loans, for a banking transaction. So anytime someone is going to transact with a bank on a commercial property, most banks are going to require at least a Phase 1 ESA as due diligence. Digging a little deeper, pardon the pun, we can do Phase 2 environmental site assessments, which involve soils and groundwater testing, sampling to determine the extent of potential contamination on a site. If those recognized environmental conditions are located or suspected on a site, we typically will move to the Phase 2 level and do more testing and analysis of the findings. One of the best parts of this program, to me, is the planning piece. You can do any type of planning within limits. I mean, you can't do actual design plans with these funds, but community visioning, master plans, streetscape concepts, individual site concept plans, cost estimating. A lot of times, if you can get a rendering of what you want to do at a property and a good cost estimate, that's good enough to take to a bank for applying for additional funding, or even other funding agencies typically want to see, okay, you've got a plan for this property before we invest in it. So these are the kinds of things that we can do. Newer this year, they've added doing marketing studies and feasibility analyses. If you wanted to, say, bring a new hotel into Covington, you might need to have a market study done to see if you could support another hotel in this area. And I know that's a question that's been raised for the region, in fact, is availability of hotel properties. Economic impact studies for various types of uses on properties. Planning studies, they run the gamut. This is one that we did in the town of Pulaski a few years back called the Peak Creek Corridor Study. Peak Creek, the waterway, runs right through the middle of downtown Pulaski. And those properties, the backs of those properties face the creek. The properties on the left side of the screen there face Main Street on the other side, and the properties on the right face First Street. So What the town wanted to do was turn this area, because of the beauty of the creek, turn it into a walking path, or a Peak Creek promenade, if you will, and looked toward the option of opening up those buildings to the creek side where they can have restaurant space, outdoor seating opportunities. That building there on the right, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about in just a moment. That's a very important Brownfield site. We can do concept plans. This is the former United Cigarette Machine Factory in Lynchburg, a beautiful building with great bones, huge building, and it would make a terrific brewery, wedding venue, different things like that. So we did some concept planning for that site. We can also do remediation planning, which is developing the remediation plan and even paying some of the fees associated with remediation, enrolling a site in the Virginia Voluntary Remediation Program. So that's what you see there as an example of that. So in your community, let me stop there a moment and allow you to ask me any questions about how this money can be used, or have I whet your appetite a little bit here?
Have any questions?
Okay. So what we've done so far in this region, we've completed a community-wide inventory. That continues throughout the process. We're constantly updating that as we bring new sites on. We've either initiated or completed 10 Phase 1 ESAs, 5 of which are in the city of Covington. We're initiating a Phase 2 ESA as well on one of the Covington sites. We've done 6 asbestos lead-based paint assessments, 1 structural evaluation, which I'll tell you a little bit more about shortly, and we're embarking on a conceptual redevelopment plan right now for the town of Irongate. One of the sites, the first site that we took on was the old East Elementary Jefferson School site in Clifton Forge, where we did a Phase 1 ESA, asbestos and lead-based paint assessments. That building came back just fine. No further assessments were needed. We put Ms. Burcham in touch with a couple of developers, and she's had some real good conversations about that property. It would make a great residential market rate housing, possibly, which is a need in Clifton Forge. A second site, and that picture didn't come out as bright as I would have liked to. This is right around the corner from the Masonic Theater in Clifton Forge. This is a former office building, and this owner is moving forward. Again, we did Phase 1 ESA, asbestos lead-based paint on this building. This property owner is moving forward with private investment to develop some mixed use for this site. It's a beautiful building with a lot of really good features. One of the sites in Covington is the vacant storefront on West Main Street. This property owner would like to turn this into a children's party venue called the Celebration Depot. We've done Phase 1 ESA, asbestos lead-based paint on that property. This site is on East Oak Street, a former warehouse building and garage building. The property owner would like to look into vertical gardening in this warehouse building. We've done the Phase 1 ESA, asbestos lead-based paint, and we have determined that this site does need a little more investigation. And it's mainly because of proximity to an old dry cleaner and some of the past uses at this site. We don't anticipate it being a tremendous issue, but it was recommended that we move forward with the Phase 2, and we are getting underway with that.
What does Phase 2 include?
Phase 2 includes soils testing, groundwater testing, and in this case we'll be doing vapor testing to see if there's any, because of the past petroleum uses on this site, we want to make sure that, particularly since they're going to be growing food grade materials in this building, we want to make sure there's no vapor encroachment from underneath the ground. So we'll be doing vapor testing on this one.
And one of the other things you mentioned a little bit ago was structural.
Yes, sir.
Now, if a building needed structural study, when would that come into play?
we could do it at the time we're doing the phase 1, in fact. And I'm going to talk to you about one of those in just a second. This building, due to the age, it was in fairly good condition, so we didn't anticipate needing structural. But if the property owner felt that they needed that in order to develop concept plans or design plans for their project, we can add that to the process as well.
I want to check with them again.
Yeah, we can do that. We've been in communication with this property owner a couple of times. She may not be aware that we could do that for her.
Yeah,
I wasn't aware on the property.
Are you? Wonderful. I need to talk with you. So let me go back to your little building there. Yes, if you feel like you need, particularly with the vertical gardening, you may want to get the structure checked out for load bearing opportunities.
The original building was 19, but the addition on the main warehouse, where it was attached to the building, so that's what, when the folks were up there months ago, we were looking at all that.
Okay.
I didn't add structure.
Okay, should we add that?
Please do. Because where the building beside it, that blue building, has pulled us apart.
Okay.
And I'm concerned about the first building, the one on the storage flat.
Okay.
I want to save it at all costs.
Okay, cool. I'll get Holland to get in touch with you tomorrow.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Glad you brought that to our attention. This is another beautiful building in Covington. This is the old bank, and I'm not sure the name of the old bank. People's Bank, that's right. On West Main Street. This is a gorgeous building on the inside. As you can see, it's got marble staircases, beautiful ironwork in it. This building, again, wants to be either mixed use or all residential use, market rate housing probably. This is the one that we have just undertaken in Iron Gate. This is our first Iron Gate site. This is the old Iron Gate school property. That building has been closed since 1969, and one of the smartest things that they did was to block up those windows. That saved that building. Right now, it needs a roof, and that's one of the reasons we did a structural evaluation on it. We did the phase 1, it came back fine. Asbestos paint, as you would expect a building of this age, there is asbestos there that can be dealt with. We did the structural evaluation. The building is in surprisingly good condition. And that is simply because the windows didn't get broken out, water didn't impede the building. Now the roof does, you can see daylight through the roof, so they've got to immediately replace the roof. This is one that the town hopes to acquire potentially for a new town hall and community space.
That's my next question. I hate to interrupt, Laura.
You're fine. I'm glad you are.
Kathy chimed in, but I was wondering, are all these property owners engaged?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can't do any testing or any evaluations without property owner's permission. And sometimes it's a potential purchaser that may contact us, but the property owner has to give permission as well.
And one thing I will add, because we discussed it at the EDC board meeting, was as soon as we advertise Rivermont School, we can then move and initiate the steps to start the Brownfield phase 1 assessment there, so to at least get that ball rolling for whatever future developer may be interested in that one too.
Cool.
Yes, I wanted to. I actually had a little bit of time this afternoon and tried to get some pictures. I didn't have time to find them and didn't have time to reach out to you. So I'll get with Ms. Onatis and we will get moving on that as soon as we can. But that'll be a new site added for you guys. The other thing that we will be doing with, as Iron Gate moves to negotiate with this property owner, we will be looking at some cost estimating to know what's it going to cost to replace that roof immediately, because they're not going to have time. That roof needs to be replaced within the next year. To apply for new funding from either DHCD or Rural Development or the Allegheny Foundation, or for the town to come up with that much money, that building would not be saved in a year. So that's an immediate need that we will be looking at with an architect here shortly. The gutters also need to be replaced outside that building. There's some water intruding toward the bottom and sort of deteriorating some of the brick mortar. Inside, you can't see that photo very well. Inside this building, it's very interesting. The property owner has been storing World War II equipment. In the metal warehouse that's to the right of the building itself, he has old World War truck tanks and trucks and just all this old equipment that he's been saving. And that right there is a World War II biplane with the wings removed. That's inside the school itself. That's on the first floor. But we find interesting things in these properties. One we have underway right now is I guess it's Riches, is that how you pronounce that? Riches Clean Care Center. They're on South Craig Avenue. It's at a really great gateway location. We have a phase 1 underway. We will anticipate doing phase 2 here just simply because it's dry cleaner. Dry cleaners notoriously have issues, especially one this old, so we plan to probably move forward with phase 2 on that site. The potential purchaser is interested in returning this to a modern dry cleaning service, so that's a great need for the community as well. This one here is the former Snack Shack, or Country Corners, I think it was called at one time, on Potts Creek Road. It is an operating, it's not vacant, it's an operating gas station convenience store with a little bit of food counter there, and a purchaser is interested in renovating and continuing this use there. They're not changing use probably. Another one that we have pending is the former Allegheny Motor site on Monroe Avenue, the distribution, you know who this is. The purchaser is Gordon Gibson. My mind has gone blank. This is a relatively new site, but the purchaser or current owner of that site is interested in using that for a distribution facility for products, supplies. What's the name?
Dressler Motors.
It used to be
Dressler
Yeah,
Motors.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's at Allegheny.
Oh, it
Yeah,
should
threw
be
me off.
Dressler Motors, okay. Again, this one is so new, we haven't gotten into the research yet. We do have to, on petroleum sites, get DEQ's approval they have to claim the site as eligible first, so that's where it is right now. We're waiting for DEQ eligibility determination on that one. But that's the outside of it. Another one is the old Ponderosa truck stop on Longdale Furnace Road. I understand this was the place to go back in the 70s. It was the only place to go get a burger after a football game, that's what I understand. That's about right. But that site, the truck stop was actually demolished many years ago, but there is someone interested in using this site for a fabrication facility. So it would be a good use due to its location, good reuse of that site. Potential sites we've looked at or are looking at: the former Selma School site, the old motel site at Cliftondale gas station there at the Cliftondale exit. There's a lot directly across from the hospital, the old hospital complex lot. That's a privately owned property that we've thought about doing something with. This is the old salvage yard. I believe that's on 11th in Selma. Now, those are just a few of the sites. We've got a lot more sites to look at, and then of course we'll be adding the Rivermont School site to this list, so next time I come I'll have some information on that one, hopefully. But the best thing about this program is the ability to use these funds as leverage towards other funds when you're actually trying to build a project. This is an example. This is the S-curve on 581 in downtown Roanoke. Right about there, right in the middle of that curve, at one time was Virginia Scrap Iron and Metal Company. It was full of old commercial properties, paint stores. It was a nasty area, very underutilized and underwhelming. It was at one time a graveyard for Norfolk Southern train engines. Today that site is Virginia Tech Carilion School of Medicine. That project started Now, I'm not going to say that EPA paid for that school, you all know that, but that project, the evaluation of that project, the property, the initial assessments that went into Virginia Scrap was paid for through EPA funding. So it was the seed that planted, that grew into this economic engine for the city of Roanoke. On a little bit smaller scale, I told you on that Peak Creek property in Pulaski, this building was an old warehouse, a grocery warehouse. It sits next door to Town Hall on First Street in Pulaski. We did a phase 1 environmental site assessment. It was a grocery warehouse. There wasn't anything there, no recognized environmental conditions. So with the little bit of seed money from a phase 1, a private developer spent over $8 million and renovated that site into the Jackson Park Inn and Conference Center. It's a 36-room boutique hotel with a full restaurant and bar, state-of-the-art conference facilities, outdoor seating, and it is an economic driver for the town of Pulaski. They say these days, since this place opened, their biggest problem is they have no parking on the weekends because everybody's coming here to eat. And while we're on this subject, on April 30th, the EDC is planning a field trip for elected officials and staff to Pulaski. Ms. Akridge is going to rent a bus and gather everyone that's available to go for a day trip down to Pulaski. We'll be having lunch at the Jackson Park Inn and then do a walking tour of the town of Pulaski. They are one of the greatest success stories for this program in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Pulaski's had one of these grants. They started in 2009. They've had 3 grants. They're moving into their 4th grant now. So they've continued to apply for this money and have continued to keep it going and have had tremendous success with the program. So Ms. Akridge felt that that would be a good opportunity for you guys to see what the end result of this program can be. And that's on April 30th.
Is that, I might be in the wrong town, isn't the railroad depot close to that?
It is close there. They renovated the old railroad depot. It's about probably a quarter mile from this building.
I thought
This one, the railroad tracks are right across the street. Any questions? Are you excited?
Oh, yeah.
Good, that's what I came for.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you again for having me. Don't hesitate to reach out and contact us if you have any questions or if there are any sites that you're interested in. Just share those with us. We'd be happy to look into them for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Very good.